It isn't often that I say to you that I am honored to sit down with a storyteller, but that is exactly what I'm going to say to you today, as I have the great privilege of sitting down with the fantastic illustrator, E.B. Lewis. That's coming up next on Books Alive. Some books absolutely take your breath away. And I am talking in particular about this one right here. It is called The Other Side. The illustrator of this book and 49 other books is here with me today, and this is the magical E.B. Lewis. Welcome.
I am welcome. Thank you.
It is just an honor and a thrill to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Love to be here.
Well, we were talking about
It's my honor.
well, your incredible body of work, and I only could fit a few of them on the table.
Okay. Yeah.
But you told me you're up to 50 books now.
Yeah.
How
Been busy.
Yeah, how does that feel?
Exhausting.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about how you got there. You started in children's books how?
Actually, it was kind of almost reluctantly, you know, if you can believe it or not. I was working at a psychiatric hospital, and my graduate degree is in special ed, and I was working at with emotionally disturbed adolescents.
What were you doing with them?
Basically, it was more, I would say, art therapy, but art as therapy. You know, giving them an outlet, an artistic outlet.
Drawing?
Drawing and working in a wood shop, believe it or not.
Clay?
No clay.
No clay.
No, it was really wood, drawing, furniture making, just kind of getting them an opportunity to use their hands, the tactile kinesthetic issues. And then I would leave there in the afternoon after working 8 hours, and then I would go across the street to the prison of the criminally insane. And there I worked with that population doing woodwork as well. So it was kind of interesting. And then
what drew you to that?
Job.
Just no way. No way.
No.
It takes a special person to be doing that.
It was. Well, I'm a teacher. I'm an educator by
heart.
By heart. Yes, by heart.
Okay.
And what happened was when I graduated from Temple, I had a dual degree. I majored in art education and graphic design and illustration.
Okay.
And so when I got out, I was ill prepared for the illustration part of it, and I went right into teaching.
Okay.
But I could only get a substitute teaching position. So I needed to get a full-time position, and then that opportunity opened. And so they told me that if I was going to work with that population, I needed to go back to school to get my degree in special ed. And
Why do you want to work with that population?
I love teaching, and the thing is that I had no idea that I'm dyslexic. I didn't find out until a graduate year of school.
Okay.
And so
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Your graduate.
They didn't talk about that. Even if I was, I was born in the 50s, and
how did you read if you were dyslexic?
You read, but you read slowly and with much difficulty.
Yeah.
You know, it was a problem that you kind of overcome. Now, you don't overcome it really. You compensate, yes, yes, you compensate for it. So it wasn't overcome, but it's
compensatory education in schools
Yeah.
as a trade. So yeah, we all.
But what happened was that the fact that I had trouble myself in education in school in the early years, and kind of knew that there's certain things that need to be in place first for a kid to actually get in. And I always tell teachers when I go around the country now working with young teachers, actually young and old teachers, that a kid don't really care what you know until they know that you care. And so that's what I do is I go in, I went in into that department, went in with that population caring. And then I was able to get from them what others were unable to. And so I know what it looks like when I see a teacher, a master teacher work. You don't hear them complain. You don't hear them complain about having 32 kids in a classroom. They look at them as not problems. They look at them as challenges.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's what it was. And I learned that from my uncle. You know, I walked into. I remember when at the school at the hospital where I was teaching, they said they were going to close down the department, no longer providing art as an outlet for the kids, for these adolescents. I was like, wait a minute, you're crazy. There's no way you're going to do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, well, you know, and I said, well, if you want to keep your job, you're going to, you know, teach GED. And I said, no way am I going to teach GED. I said, you understand that I'm an artist, and
Yeah.
and so I went on this rant. I went to my uncle, who played a major and significant role in my life. And I went to my uncle and I said, you know, imagine, here they go again. They're going to do away with the art and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And I went on a 45-minute rant with him.
Well, yeah.
And so he sat there and shaking his head, thinking, I'm assuming that he's in agreement. And then when I finished, he said, are you finished? I said, yeah.
Yeah.
He said, are you a teacher? I said, yeah. He said, well, then teach. And it was not the response I was expecting. I thought we were going to get our placards and signs and go down to Board of Education and march, you know.
Yeah.
But he said, no. He said, you teach whatever they want you to teach because you're an artist and you're a teacher. And so what you're going to bring to whatever it is that you're going to teach is your creativity, your sensitivity, your passion. All those components are going to go into whatever it is that you teach. So you go in there and you teach whatever that you're supposed to, that they want you to teach.
What a mirror he just held up
He
to
did.
you.
He did.
That is
It
incredible.
was an amazing thing, and,
What a
it
gift.
changed my life in a sense.
I'll bet
it
it did.
refocused me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you taught then the GED program.
I taught the GED program.
But somewhere.
And somewhere along
you
the
took a
line,
turn.
I took the left turn. I said reluctantly, we got to get back to. We kind of digressed there for a moment. What happened was I was on the cover of the Artist magazine. I had a great opportunity to get on the cover of the Artist magazine, and an agent that represents authors and illustrators called me up. He didn't actually directly call me, but I got the phone call. And he wanted to know if I was interested in doing children's books. And I said, no.
I love that. I just love it.
And I didn't have to think much about it. I just, you know, I said, because I knew that even though I studied illustration, that the work that I was doing was fine art, you know, in a sense, and not making a distinction, but not making a grade in the sense of one being better than the other. They're different. It's like classical and jazz.
Right.
And I knew that I was doing jazz and not classical in a sense.
Right.
You know. And so I said, no.
Yeah.
But I had a good sense and good mind to go and investigate the industry, the children's book industry. My sons, you know, they loved books, and we were buying books for them, and but they were looking at Eric Carle and Stephen Kellogg and people like that, and they were not looking at, as he mentioned, are you familiar with, before you say no, do you know Chris Van Allsburg's work?
Yeah.
I'm like, no.
Right.
What about Barry Moser?
Yeah.
Jerry
Never
Pickney?
heard of him, right? Yeah.
No.
Right.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah.
So you need to go and see what's going on in kids' books. And so on my lunch break, I was teaching there in Trenton, New Jersey. So there was a pizza shop in Lawrenceville, not too far, and I would go to this pizza shop, and right down the store, 2 or 3 stores down from the pizza shop, was a bookstore. And I walked in and I said, you know, I might have the opportunity of doing books, but I really don't know from books, and so could you help me out?
Yeah.
And she says, come here.
Yeah.
She put me in a corner, came out later with a stack
Love
of books, like 2
her.
stacks of books. And
Yeah.
she says, I'm going to teach you about books, about children's books.
There's your angel right
yeah,
there.
that was my angel.
Wow.
And I didn't know who this woman was, but until later on I found out that, people in the industry knew her. She ran a bookstore in D.C. called the Cheshire Cat.
Yeah, Jewel. Yes.
Well, no.
It's not Jewel?
No, not Jewel. This was Greenie Newberg.
Okay.
And Greenie said,
Wow.
here, this is what a great book is.
Yes.
This is a book that's not so great.
Wow.
And the reasons why this one is great and this one does not work is X, Y, and Z. And the first day was amazing.
Gosh.
Second day, I said I had to go back because I was just getting fed. It was just nourishment,
Yeah.
you know. And so I went back, and for 2 weeks I got fed. You know, I went back every day for 2 weeks straight into this bookstore, and she just nourished
That's
me.
like a little miracle.
It was. And so
Yeah.
I called this guy back, and I said, you know what? I know I said no initially, but I, did some homework,
Yeah.
and I want to do this work.
Wow.
And he said, I knew you would be interested. So I took the liberty of sending your slides to 9 different publishers.
Oh.
And so the rest is history. He calls me back about 3 or 4 days later. He says, I can't get, normally I can't get work for artists. I mean, but I love your work. I believe in your work. And so there are some illustrators and authors that I can get work for, and some I can't. And I'm always trying. But in this case, in your case, I sent out 9 to 9. You worked at 9 different publishers, and 6 of them called back and said they definitely want you to work for them. And so you have 6 contracts. I said, what's that mean? He said, quit your job. And so I quit my job. I gave my 2 weeks notice, and was like, and it was at a good time because I, as a teacher, I want to see development. I want to see success. And in that industry, there's very little success to be had because it's this revolving door. You think you've worked, and it's like they're gone,
Right.
and 3-4 months later they're back.
Oh.
Because it's a solution. That's a whole other issue. But,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
it came at a good time in my life. The chapter changed, and so I went into doing my first year. I did 4 books, which is a lot of books to do in 1 year. I had no idea. I was scared to death. And
What year was that?
this was 1993.
93.
Yeah, 93.
Okay. And now, what was the name of your very first book? Fire
on a Mountain.
Okay.
Fire on a Mountain was the very first book.
right.
Still in print.
Still in
Yeah,
print.
thank God.
Wow. Okay. And I wonder what the earliest one is that we have here. Is it Rows and Piles of Coins, do you think?
The earliest one we have here is probably Rows and Piles of Coins. No.
No?
Bat Boy and His Violin, I believe.
Okay. Let's grab
Yeah.
that. All right. Let me open it up and see. This is by Gavin Curtis and illustrated by E.B. Lewis for Simon & Schuster. And this is 98.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably the earliest one here.
Okay. All right. So the bat, let's start with this
That's
one.
that's my son. My son Joshua.
Oh.
Each one has had an opportunity to get in a book.
Uh-huh.
And so that was Joshua's opportunity. And
Wow.
It's the Negro Baseball League of
Is
1940s.
he a violinist?
No.
Okay.
no.
Because he
It's
looks
all
like he's holding it
staged.
pretty well.
Yeah. Well, it's it's a homework. It's the love for me partly most of what I'm doing, or a lot of what I'm doing, is the research, and getting it right.
How long does it take you to research a book?
Depends on the book.
Okay.
Yeah, because
How about
sometimes
this one?
this one, I can't recall, but I'm sure it took some time because I needed to research the Negro Baseball League. And when you come out of that research, I mean, you become an expert in a sense.
Uh-huh.
You kind of know, because I dig deep to get as much information as I can possibly get about the subject. And so the uniforms, making sure the uniforms are right.
Do you have a
like you
favorite
mentioned,
picture in here?
you're on it.
Oh, good. All right, you guys, let's see if we can get this. So,
Yeah.
can you set the scene for us, E.B.?
The scene is that the little boy, I can't think of his name now in the story.
Reginald?
But Reginald. He is now, his father wants him to work for this losing baseball team that he has. He's the coach of this losing baseball team.
Is it a real one?
No, it's a fictitious
Okay, I
baseball
wondered.
team.
Yeah.
And he basically comes out to help his father, and he's just bungling everything. And so his father says, "Look, take you and your fiddle and go over there and play." And so he goes over there and he plays, but he plays beautifully. And it inspires. The music inspires the players to play better.
Yes.
And so that's
Any truth to that?
any
or
truth
just a story?
to truth to music making you play better.
No,
Definitely.
did this ever happen?
No, I don't think so. No.
It's his imagination.
It's his imagination.
Okay,
Yeah, it's the
cool.
author's imagination. It's
Okay.
great.
Look at that. Now, are these models? Did you have friends come in and
Every
do this?
everyone you see in my books are real live people.
Okay.
And so the dress up, the making sure of the period pieces,
Uh-huh.
the clothing, and dressing my son up in that little get up there of the 1940s, how the
Aw.
kids would wear caps and
Yeah.
and,
Right here.
yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, there's something about your pictures. I was telling you before about the light in your pictures. And I just feel, oh, here's a perfect one. Look at this. Look at
That's
this.
light that is not, that's moonlight.
Moonlight?
Yes, moonlight, because it's not sunlight. There's no
Right.
sun out there.
Right.
So it's moonlight. And setting that up and actually not doing that, all my night scenes are done at day, in the daytime. And then I transfer it in my painting to night. because it's very difficult to shoot the scene at night.
Yeah.
So I shoot it in a day and then transfer the scene at night.
Okay.
And so that light that you're seeing is a light of just studying light and knowing how light works.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
Knowing
so
how
it's like physics or something.
I guess.
Okay, yeah. Well, there's such warmth and emotion, and I was saying to
The
you,
emotional part of it is part of my work. I
Yeah.
think that if you look at my body of work, the publishers hire me because they know that I'm going to bring that component to to the book.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
I bring the emotion.
You do.
And so so basically the understanding, if it's a tough book, it's a book like Sometimes My Mama Gets Angry.
Yeah.
I think you have
I've
that
got
there
that over here.
about a little girl whose mother is suffering from bipolar disorder, and she has to survive in part as a result of it. There's a perfect example of emotion of dealing with that and how a little girl, a child, would have to deal with that, that difficulty of mom
Oh, here's the
changing
beauty.
overnight.
This isn't the mom part, though. This is her at school.
Yeah.
When that kid is making her feel bad.
Well, you see all the gestures. That's a real father too.
Oh, wow.
But getting the gestures is all part of it. So, and that can happen either if you're looking face on or behind, and it's getting that kid to really become that character in the book,
But
and that's the fun part.
the
It is.
the way you lit that child, I mean, the child's meanness leaps off the page. Let's see if I can find. Oh.
The mom is when mom comes back. See the light there.
Oh.
What makes a watercolor exciting is the light. It's the contrast of light and dark, and the optimal watercolor is one that is achieved from the very initial wash. If that could be achieved, it's very difficult to make a watercolor happen in the first wash. But what happens is that light filters. If without light, you have no color. Light filters through the pigment, hits the paper, and bounces back. And so what happens? You get that dance. And that's what makes watercolors really, truly dance.
Wow.
And so, in order to get that, to make that light happen, it's a contrast of the light and the dark, so that kind of chiaroscuro happening, and then you add the emotion. So it's like baking a cake, if you would.
Wow.
And putting all the ingredients in.
Yeah.
And then if
So
you put them in
you're
right,
thinking about all of that
oh,
when
you
you're
have
doing
to
this.
the whole time.
How long did it take you to
Takes me about
paint
2-3 days, but I'm in the studio 15, 18 hours a day. So I'm never out of bed before 10, unless I'm doing something like tomorrow, going to the Coretta Scott King at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh,
but,
why?
or speaking at a school. But I never get out of bed before 10.
Wow.
So 10 is my wake up time, and by 11 o'clock I'm in the studio, and then I work straight through till about 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Straight through.
And is that just while you're doing a book, or when you're done with one, do you give yourself like a month off or something?
I would love to, but I'm working as a fine artist as well, so I have galleries to fill.
Wow.
And so when I finish a book, then I'm working straight in. I go right into either another book. I'm booked to 2014, so I always have a book to do.
Wow.
I do about 3 or 4 books a year, and then I have the fine art that like last year I probably did over 180 paintings.
Is this all in the Michelson Gallery, or where do you have
I'm represented by Gallery in Los Angeles, Santa Fe, New York, Northampton, Massachusetts, Philadelphia, and Charleston, South Carolina.
So if people wanted to buy a painting, they could go like on your website?
You go to my website, yeah. You can contact me directly, and say what happens often. A new book will come out, and I'll get a phone call from someone and says, a fan, and say, I just saw your new book, and I want to know if you have page 16 available.
Oh, wow.
And I'll look and say, yeah, it might be, and then we'll make the exchange.
Yeah.
Or they will contact me via the email, or the museums are purchasing, or the gallery. So there's several ways of purchasing a piece.
Well, they're incredible, and anybody would want one. I was looking for Across the Alley. There it is. Okay, we're going to jump around a little bit in terms of the chronological order, but
actually, I just wanted to add a little sidebar to that. I just found out today that the Curlin collection is a major collection in Minnesota.
What is it?
The Curlin.
Collection.
Collection.
Okay.
What they do is they collect the art, the illustrations from various authors and illustrators.
Uh-huh.
And so they have collected the first 25, and now they're getting ready to collect the next 25. So that's a piece from each one of the books, which is really incredible.
When you say the first 25.
By first 25 books.
Books.
So they buy one painting from each one. And all the correspondence, all the sketches, all the photographs.
They've got all the
and it goes into this. And you go down to the,
my goodness.
to the
Where
collection.
is this place?
It's in, I have yet to go.
Okay.
It's in Minnesota, at the University of Minnesota, I believe.
Okay.
And the collection is called the Curlin Collection.
Okay.
And
Wow.
it's underground, and it looks like you're in the Matrix because it goes on for miles, I'm told, and of these just drawers of art. And
so everybody gets to see the process.
Yeah, that's exactly. You go there with gloves. You say, I want to go and see, you know.
You go with gloves?
Yeah, white gloves, and you go in, and they pull the work out, and you go through the work, and it's great. You know, so it's
man.
wonderful.
You've got to
and so it's
go.
people who are studying the work, you know,
Yeah.
students, whatever, are able to go there and look out and see the whole process.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's great. It's a great opportunity.
Cool. All right, this one is Across the Alley, and it's by Richard, is it Michelson?
Rich Michelson.
Okay, and he has a gallery
In Northampton, that's
that
the
has
gallery.
a lot of your work. Okay. All right, so this is Across the Alley.
And this is his story.
This is his story?
This is his story.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, set the scene for us here.
The scene there is, let's see if the grandfather is there. The grandfather is there.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, grandfather's there. Grandfather's coming into the room. He doesn't realize that the little boy across the way, that his grandson and his little friend are actually friends, and that when the grandfather leaves, they have this great time across the alley.
Right.
The African little boy, his father, I think, is a coach for the Negro Baseball League, and for a small
Starter. He's a starter in the Negro Leagues. Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then the grandfather, so he loves baseball, and the little Jewish boy, his grandfather was teaching him how to play the violin, and so at night they switch because the little Jewish boy wants to play baseball so badly, and then the little boy, the African American boy, wants to play the violin. So they exchange across.
Here, you take it.
And so one
great.
night, the grandfather is teaching. No, he goes to lessons. I think he says the Jewish boy's having lessons, and so he comes back. And he's up in his room, and the grandfather hears the playing.
Yes.
Now the African boy is the one who's actually learning and getting the lessons from the little Jewish kid.
Right.
And so when he hears the playing, he assumes that it's his grandson.
Ah,
And
right.
he sneaks up the stairs to hear.
Yes.
And when he opens the door, hoping that he's going to find his grandfather there, his grandson in position, he looks out the window and sees the African American.
Yes.
It's a really
And
beautiful
you're
story.
going to be the next Yasha Heifetz,
Right.
except that
Right.
you'd rather be playing baseball.
Yes. And the grandfather he said, hand me that back. He asks the little African American boy, and it seems like he's very stern. He's like, hand me the violin back. Give me that back.
Yeah.
And what he does, he gets it back and says, no, you're holding it wrong. And then he proceeds to show him how to hold it.
Now that's a very dark picture.
Yeah, because it's a dark picture because they're inside the room. And so that's the thing. I'm exact in terms of what light is doing and what you would assume and what you should see in that setting. So I'm not concerned about whether or not you are going to read it in light. I want you to read it as reality, and I think it confuses like a lot of the reviewers who are looking at the work. So that's dark, but in reality, it would be.
Right.
So they want everything to come into light to see it and say, oh, okay, I can understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But it's not the reality.
No, you want it to be genuine.
I'm a fine artist,
Yes.
Understand? So my thing is that I'm going
Here's
to
the light they
pursue
want.
exactly. They want
Here's
that.
the
They want
light.
everything to be in that light, and everything cannot be in that light because it would not be real.
So not only did you teach as a teacher directly,
I still teach. So.
you're still teaching.
Right.
What are you teaching now?
I teach I'm an associate at the University of the Arts in Philadelphia, and I teach sophomores sometimes and seniors. Right now, I work with the senior population at the university. I've been there 14 years. I teach what is called senior portfolio.
Oh.
And these are seniors who are preparing a portfolio to get a job in the industry of illustration.
Okay.
So some of them are going into various target markets, such as editorial, advertising, children's books, graphic novels, so on and so forth. Sometimes even medical illustration. And so that I help them in that endeavor, you know, to put together
So
a
how many
portfolio.
kids would you be working with? That
Anywhere 15 to 17 children,
Oh,
students, not children, but
special students, lucky students? Okay. All right, but I was going to say, so you are still teaching in a classroom.
Yes.
But you're also teaching through your books.
teaching through the books, yes.
Yeah, very powerfully. Well, I guess you get sort of a sense of what I'm talking about here. This man is incredibly talented, and his heart is probably the size of Texas. And we're going to have the fun of coming back to look at his Coretta Scott King award-winning book and the brand new one that just won the honor book this past January, The Negro Speaks of Rivers, and that'll be coming up next. Stay with us.
Pants, pants, pants. I am folding the pants. The pants are long. Do they go on my head? Do they? Do the pants go on my head? No. They go on.
Everyday moments can become teaching moments because learning starts long before school does. Give your child the start they need at bornlearning.org.
No matter where you live, life in the ocean depends on you. To help protect our ocean, recycle and dispose of your trash properly. To learn what you can do, go to keepoceansclean.org.
Welcome back, and if you're just joining us, I have with me in the studio today a very talented genius, and his name is E.B. Lewis. And thanks again for joining us today.
Thank you.
This is really a special treat. In the break, he was just, we were remarking on the fact that he won the Coretta Scott King Award, well, the Honor Award for illustration for 3 books, 3 in a row.
Yeah.
And you said they just kept calling you up every year and saying
It seems like, yes. It's great each time, you know. You never get tired of that phone
I'll
call.
bet you don't.
No,
right?
never.
And then you actually won the Coretta Scott King Illustrator Award for this book, talking about Bessie.
Right.
Okay.
Nikki
and
Grimes.
with Nikki
Yeah,
Grimes.
she's genius. Talking about genius, that's genius there.
Did you do research for this one, E.B.?
There's not one that I don't.
Didn't do-
No,
okay.
No, there's research in every one. You just don't. That's not in your head. You know, I tell my students that all the time at the university. It's hard to get them to understand the importance of to doing the research because they assume that it's here. Those who do this work know that there's nothing up there. That you have to go and get and put it up
get it.
there. And so when you
Okay.
fill yourself to overflowing, and then you,
Oh, wow.
you put it
you
out,
fill yourself to overflowing.
and then you put it out.
You're such a poet. You are a poet. Now, something I noticed in a number of the books is that you like to use photographs
Yeah.
in your pictures. Why is that?
I don't know. I don't know if it's that I like it. It becomes a wonderful element at the time. In this case, the story required a photograph because this is after her death,
Okay.
and it's the repast where you come back to the house, and that's where they go and they talk
Okay.
about
And
their
they're
account that they're honoring.
Okay.
And same with the photograph in sometimes the mama gets angry
Yes.
because her grandmom is there, and so I use my grandmom in that case though. So that's my great grandmom.
Who's this?
That is a little girl in the neighborhood. I run around the neighborhood finding children. And so this is, I knock on doors and say, oh, can I use your daughter or your son?
Yes.
And they agree, and I dress them up, and we have fun. We go out there and play dress up and have a good time.
Wow. And look at the light in that picture.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Well,
just...
whatever. That's the thing. I mean, I love the light. That's one of the things I strive for is trying to paint each one in light. But there are cases where the stars above us is a book about
Yeah,
a
let's
little
grab
girl
that.
who's afraid of the dark.
Yes.
You know, I can only work with night.
night.
Yeah, and so
Oh.
as much as I would love to have the bright sunlight on that,
Yeah.
I can't. It would not come across as real. And so that's night sky, and that's what a person would look like in a night sky, you know. And I see the interpretations of them when others do it, and they might be bright and whatever, but they're not real. You know,
You're going for real.
I'm going for the reality all the time, every time.
This is a very cool story, just for those who haven't picked it up yet, about a family where the little girl's afraid, and her father points out the Big Dipper and there's things that'll be constant in the night sky because he's going to go to war.
He's going to war.
And it's not long, long ago going to war. It's our war now.
Yeah.
And so she's living in this time, and he's going to see the same stars where he is, as
And the same moon.
and the
as well.
same moon.
Yes, you're talking about the moon.
When he's, let me find the one where he's got the tent. Have I passed
No,
it?
you haven't passed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and I got the.
Yeah,
Oh, there he is. Oh gosh, that's
So
just.
yes,
gosh.
he's looking up at the stars and the moon and telling her she's on the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they can share that. They have that bond.
Yeah. I
Incredible.
mean, no, books are. You know, that's what's
Yeah.
wonderful about the whole industry, the children's book industry. It's just this opportunity of bringing these wonderful stories to life. You know, and kids can open them up and go, you know, and they walk with that book, and this is my favorite book, you know, and it tells their story in some way. It might not be their story, but it is the story that touches them. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's about connection.
It is. It's about, you know, that same. It's an issue of longing for a loved one. We did that in sometime coming on home soon.
Oh yeah. Let's
Where
grab
the
that.
grandmom is watching over the granddaughter, her granddaughter, and her father, again, is in the war. This was 1942, another war. And mom, and during that time, during the Rosie the Riveter period, where the women went out to work in the various factories. In this case, the mother went to Chicago to work on the trains. And so she's home with grandmom, anticipating the return of her mother and father. And, you know, that can be eternity for a child,
Oh,
you know,
yes.
waiting for a parent to come home.
Yeah.
Even though it
Here
might
she
only be a
is.
week, and it can feel
If
like
that's
eternity.
not waiting, I don't know waiting.
Yeah.
Look at this. This is incredible.
And each time this window looks different. You know, there's certain things, little
wow.
keys in there that you'll see
Yeah.
that the outside is going to be, sometimes it's snow, sometimes it's dark. And so the window changes and what's going on
But
outside.
your ability to convey the feeling is just so powerful. Here,
And you
I've
can see
got
the work that's, when I say the work of the research of where that room is a room from that period, what it would look like in a house, you know, Tennessee,
I've got a favorite.
and doing that
here.
kind of
This one.
research. Yeah. And that piece, it only has one line, and it's actually 2 words, time passes.
Time passes.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, you can practically hear the clock tick. You really, and the fire and just all of it. But the shadow and the light on her, it's just incredible. It's just gorgeous. And now my absolute favorite, of course.
Is that? That's where the author extends the story. I mean, the illustrator extends the story.
Yeah.
Jacqueline Woodson, again, someone I just love and I think is genius.
Right.
Here, and telling the story, she talks at the end of the story, if turn the next page to precedes that. She said, the letter comes from mom, and it says, I'll be coming home soon. But for me, as the other storyteller, I'm connected to it now.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the children reading this and saying, and not seeing mom come home.
Yeah.
I want the children to see that mom does come home.
Yes.
And that's where I enter in as the illustrator and continue the story or extend the story in a sense.
Nobody has ever said you're the other storyteller, but that's the perfect way to say it.
It is because
the
I look at
perfect
it
way
as,
to say it.
I look at this as a language. The illustration is a language. What illustrators do is we interpret. It's a visual interpretation of the written word, and so it's a language.
It is.
And so it's and I get my students to understand how that language works. And imagine that you cannot speak.
Oh.
And the only way that you can convey and you know express yourself is through your art. And so that's a language that you have to study.
Yeah.
And like any language, you have to learn the parts of speech. You know, all the parts that they require you to become articulate in that particular language, and it requires time to do that. And once you become astute in that, you know, adept in that particular language, then you can express yourself. You know, and that's what happens in this case. And so the story is told in words, and then it's told in picture.
Yes.
Against the picture book.
You have a depth in your language that not everyone can achieve. Okay, this one, the next one is called The Other Side. This is in my top 5 books, top of my list for across the last 30 years. This is one of my top 5. Okay, I'm going to show you the cover of it. This is Jacqueline Woodson writing, and E.B. Lewis is the other storyteller.
This takes place down the street from my house.
No kidding.
Yeah. Well, Jackie, when she wrote this as an urban story, you know. And when I heard this, in her mind, she wrote it as an urban.
She told us
but
that.
the words, for me, the story itself was not set in that period, in that time. The town, the fence that stretched through our town, you know. A fence that stretched through a town, it's not an urban setting, you know. It's more of a rural setting.
You're right.
And so I needed to find that setting. And then I saw it. I'm a child of the 50s, and so she saw it more as modern day. And I remember girls, and I wanted the girls to look like girls when girls look like little girls. And they had bobby socks and dresses and, you know, and saddle shoes and, you know, that kind of
party shoes. Everybody's got their party shoes
Party
on.
shoes, that's Sunday. That's the Sunday, you know, that's Sunday go to meeting clothes.
Yeah.
But, you know, when they're out there playing, they have the saddle shoes on and bobby socks and things like that.
That's right.
That's what I remember from my childhood.
Okay.
And so that's what I set the story in that. Yes.
Look at that.
And so one of the things in this book is that when you turn the page from the beginning, you'll see that the little girls are separated by the fence. You know, there's a scene here where they're separated by the fence. And all through the book, from the beginning of the book all the way through, they will be separated by the fence, but they're also separated by the spine of the book until they get to this point here. Once they touch, then they remain on the same side of the book throughout the remainder of the story. So it's a little device I use to help tell that story, to help dramatize what's going on of the separation.
But I said to you, that looks like the Sistine Chapel to me, because it's the energy of the touch.
The touch.
And the connection.
Yeah, that little...
Yeah. These are 2 girls whose both their mothers have told them, you cannot go on the other side of the fence. And there they are. They want to be able to play with each other, but neither one is allowed to cross over. Yeah. And so they're going to solve that problem. Let's go solve it, shall we? Look at the mothers looking. Look at that.
See, now they're on the same side of the page.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
They're on the same side of the page.
And the light here is just, again.
Well, that's
whoa.
E.B. at his best in a sense, because I had an opportunity. The whole story takes place outside. And so you give me a story that's going to take place outside, I'm just going to have a ball.
Well,
and then you got to show the painting. Wait.
Okay.
You got to show my favorite painting of the book is that, you know, this is where it comes to, you know, the girls on the fence.
Yes.
You know, and
the grand finale.
And it does the story. She does the story without being didactic. You know, there's no, you know, trying this moral at the end of it or what have you. It's just no trying to push this thing down your throat. As these little girls just wanting to be friends, you know, and sharing what little girls and little children want to do is play. They all they do is want to play. And at the end of the story, it says, one of these days, somebody's going to come along and knock this old fence down. And the little girl says, someday. And that becomes a wonderful metaphor there. Of just knocking this fence down.
Yeah, it's just, I just love it. Okay, now we're going to jump around a little bit here. I want to pick up this one because it's set in Tanzania. And we don't find those books every day.
No.
This is My Rows and Piles of Coins. And it's about a little boy who is saving up his money to buy a bicycle so that he can help his parents take their food to sell at the market.
Right.
And look at the color in that. Wow. Now explain what you did here.
What I did there, of course, in this case, I did not go to Africa. I did go to Africa, some books, but this case I did not. And so what I'm doing is I'm splicing, in a sense. I'm going and I'm doing the research in the libraries, getting images of marketplace scenes and things like that. And then to make it so it's not having infringed on anybody's copyright issue, I take part of what I get from images, graphic images, and then I superimpose. Like these women up here are women that I actually posed and dressed. The little boy is just walking down the street. And so I'm taking photographs of the women, taking little photographs, and I'm posting all that over a market scene. And the market scenes are scenes that are various market scenes. I'm taking pieces from one scene, from another photograph, or what have you, and bringing them together to get this scene. So the beauty of illustration is that it can take place in your backyard, you know, and I will make you believe, or the illustrator will make you believe that you might be on, you know, a cliff somewhere.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. Well, you can feel the heat here.
Yeah.
You can hear the noise.
The noise of the marketplace.
Yeah. You know, you get the activity, and then look at this.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you have to feel those. You know, those are the things. Those are the issues of the emotional context there, where you sit there, you set that up, and you take probably in some cases when I was working with a camera without digital camera, I would take a whole roll of film, or maybe 2 shots. So a roll of 36 will only be 2 shots.
Gee.
And what I've learned about watching, I watch movies. I love movies. And every chance I get to the theater or just turn on a movie in my studio and watch a movie over and over again. I'm one of those kind of people that will watch the same movie over and over again. And I'm looking at movies for the stills. And I'm also realizing that and I've learned something, when, say they're getting ready to blow up a bridge, you know, the cost of blowing up a bridge is very expensive. So you only do it one time.
Right.
And so what they do is they set up cameras along the perimeter of the bridge, you know, in various locations all the way around. And then they blow the bridge. And when the bridge blows, the cameras go off all at the same time. You know, I learned that I love the idea of that, because then I can get the various angles. That's what they're doing, that so they can get angles. There's an angle that they assume they want.
Okay.
But maybe
Yeah.
there might be a better one that
They didn't see.
Yeah. And so what I do is I pose my figure, set this, you know, get in this position, get in this mood, the whole thing, and then I say, hold that. And then I will go around the whole room from various angles. I will go up here, I will get on the floor, I will sit and shoot from the various angles to get the shot that I want. So when I'm looking at it, I have, you know, probably 20, now with the digital camera, I might have, you know, 30 different images of the same image.
You know, I'm thinking about you as a human being, and you're talking about looking at everything from all sides as an artist, but I'll bet as a teacher you look at things from a lot of different sides too. You going to buy that?
No, I will buy that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that is part of the teaching thing, to be able to see the multiple sides, because that makes a great teacher.
Especially of a child.
Well, the thing is that children learn, they have various different portals of how they receive information. They don't all learn the same way. Okay. You know, and so you will have someone in the classroom who is a learner that is an oral learner, you know, just by merely talking, and they get it. And then you're going to have somebody in the classroom who's a visual learner, you know, and some need to see, they need to touch it, they need to feel, they need to the whole tactile issue. Right. Isn't connected. And so I need to know that. I need to know all those areas. So when I walk into a classroom, I'm like a magician in a sense, you know, with a bag of tricks, so I can pull out at any given time that what's going. I need to say this. I need to use this as an example, and I'll use examples of life. I'll use examples of a movie. I'll use examples of a book that I might have read, and then present it in that sense. When I go to school visits, I'll recite poetry, and I'll say, "Here's a poem to set up a particular book," and I'll recite the poem and then read the book or recite the book. And I say recite because that's what I do, because I'm dyslexic. Oh, right. And so what I've had to learn how to compensate as a child, when we would have read around in the classroom, I would get up there and the words would flip and back and forth, and I would struggle, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And so what I would do is I would go home and I would call the book to memory.
Wow.
And so when I went back to school,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
reciting. Knew when I
Yes.
had to stand up, I could recite it.
Wow.
And so it gave me the ability to be able to recite.
That is amazing. That is absolutely incredible. Do you know that Jerry Pinkney is dyslexic?
Yes, I do.
Yes. I mean, look
Most
at the
of
two
us.
of you.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Do you want
And
to
we all
write?
struggle.
Do you want to write your own book?
Yeah, I do. I
Do
just don't
you?
have the time.
Well, because he said the same thing.
Yeah.
He said the same thing. I was just curious. If a parent has a child and they feel that they are gifted in art, how do you what advice do you give to parents to help their children to grow with that?
Get them out of it. Well, take them from in front of the computer first, and then put them in a situation where they can actually learn what they can and cannot do. And I mean that by putting puzzles, giving them something that they have to assemble. Giving them some nails and hammers and some nails and hammer and some wood, and say, go out there and build this. Build a mouse trap or that squirrel that's running. See if you can catch that squirrel.
Yeah.
And just go out there and do that.
Yeah.
And then give them the blank. What we do as an artist, as a visual person, is that because when I say the artist, I don't limit or exclude. I'm talking about the 7 arts. So we're talking about music, dance, drama, visual, painting. But when we're talking about the visual arts, to give them this blank piece of paper, we have a blank piece of paper. And what we do, my joy, what I love about the process is, for me, is taking this blank piece of paper, putting a mark on it, and basically I changed it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've added something to it that will make someone feel something and respond.
Yes.
All art is political.
Okay.
It's all political.
Wow.
No matter whether you're painting flowers or you're doing something dealing with some kind of political issue in terms of responding to a campaign or something of the sort. Because the fact that someone's going to have some kind of response to it in one way or another, it's going to be favorable. You do a flower, and somebody might not like that type of flower. And so that makes it political.
Interesting.
So everything that you do is going to be political.
Do you have an inner critic?
Yes, and it drives me crazy.
Does it?
He drives me crazy.
He does?
Must be
Okay.
a she, actually. It must be. I think it's a woman.
It wouldn't be that uncle of yours.
No,
would
no,
it?
no,
no.
But it is.
No.
But it
Okay.
is an inner
Okay.
critic there, and
All right.
it's one that when I finish a piece, I love it for a moment, and then I hate it, and I can never love it more than a certain period of time.
After it's born.
Yeah, and
my
then I have to
goodness.
go to that blank piece of paper again and start the process all over
The
again.
next one. This is your Coretta Scott King Honor Award-winning book that you just got this past January, and it is The Negro Speaks of Rivers by Langston Hughes. And what made you want to illustrate this book?
Well, I mentioned to you earlier my love of poetry.
Yes.
And Langston and Calty Collins, Frost, you name it. I just love poetry. But I had a lunch or dinner with Jackie Carter, who was then one of the editors at Hyperion. And we were sitting there brainstorming and thinking about books and what have you. And she said, you know what? It would be great to do a poetry book. I said, if she's ever thought about doing one. And I said,
All right.
not really. She said, but, who do you like? I said, well, I love Langston, She said, whoa. And then we started one after the other, and it's like, oh, my God, I would love to illustrate The Negro Speaks of Rivers because it speaks so much to the plight, that kind of boon and bane of our existence of blacks and having to deal with the water being such this generous thing, and also had been used against us in the civil rights movements in terms of the hoses and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And so,
Wow.
what a wonderful thing, and it sets a time span as well when we talk about the pyramids, and then the analogy that Langston uses so beautifully, the blood that runs through the veins. and looking at people's hands, an old person's hands, and seeing, you can read, so much in that of the pain and work and sweat and all that has gone into a person's life.
The life.
Yeah, the lifeblood.
Oh, let's
and it
not
becomes
miss
the
that.
life's blood there, in a sense. The water becomes the life's fluid there, and it's wonderful. I loved doing this book.
I'll bet.
Yeah, I
This
did.
this was your whole heart.
You could feel it.
Yeah.
I hope you can, because
Yeah.
it was. I laid it all
Absolutely.
out there.
Look
And
at that golden light.
if you look at the body of work and look at this book, I like to think that I step it up each time. But this one, I kind of just said, I'm going to put it all online and just go all out.
Yeah.
And just put it out there
What do
because
you
it
want to
moved
do
me
next?
so much. Create more art.
Do you have? You told me you're booked till 2014.
Yes.
So you pretty much know what's coming up.
Almost. There are publishers that have purchased my time, meaning they say, I want to book you for 2013, whatever, but I don't have a manuscript.
Oh.
So hopefully a manuscript will come along, but we
Yes.
want to make sure that we have you for that period.
Oh, wow.
So that's a nice place to be in that kind of demand.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Especially at the time that we're living in with the economy, to have that security is wonderful. I'm blessed.
E.B. Lewis, well, you're blessed and we are blessed.
Oh, thank
Because
you very
we are
much.
blessed that we get to share all of this with our children and to learn from you, the teacher that you are. So just thank you so much for all of this, and thank you so much for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule to join us here today.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity.
It was really great.
Great.
So there he is. He's got the phone keeps ringing with the Coretta Scott King Award, congratulation calls, and he also has the Caldecott Honor Book, and he's in my top 5 too. So how about that?
There you go. Thank you.
The wonderful E.B. Lewis. Come see us at the library.